Meine Damen und Herren,
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Klar TV from our studio in Münster, Germany. During the past weeks, the media repeatedly reported about protests in West Africa against the Red Cross and attacks on their employees. After Ebola helpers were murdered in Guinea, the International Red Cross admonished, I quote, "Attacks like this, with their origins in frustration and fear of the disease, are not acceptable." Now voices are becoming louder from Africa, which give a totally different picture. Today we want to let two of these voices speak out. Nana Kwame, founder and director of an architecture and engineering office in Ghana, wrote about the facts from his perspective on his Facebook page. I quote Nana Kwame. "People in the Western world need to know what's happening here in West Africa. They are lying. Ebola as a virus does not exist and is not spread. The Red Cross has brought this disease to 4 specific countries for 4 specific reasons, and it is only contracted by those who receive treatments and injections from the Red Cross. That is why Liberians and Nigerians have begun kicking the Red Cross out of their countries and reporting in the news the truth." Now the reasons, I quote Nana Kwame further. Reason 1. This vaccine-implemented sickness being called Ebola was introduced into West Africa for the end goal of getting troops on the ground in Nigeria, Liberia and Sierra Leone. Get troops to Nigeria and steal the new oil reserves they have discovered. Nana Kwame continues, describing how a reason was needed to get troops into Sierra Leone, to end the strikes of the diamond mine workers by force. With something like Ebola, it is now possible to send troops in order to get at the valuable resources of both countries. The third reason, I quote, "In addition to stealing Nigerian oil and forcing Sierra Leone back to mining, troops have also been sent in to force vaccinations, deadly Ebola poison, onto those Africans who are not foolish enough to take them willingly. 3,000 troops are being sent in to make sure that this poison continues to spread, because again it is only spread through vaccination. As more and more news articles are released like the one above from Liberia informing the populace of the US lies and manipulation, more and more Africans are refusing to visit the Red Cross. Troops will force these vaccinations upon the people to ensure the visible appearance of an Ebola pandemic. In addition to this, they will protect the Red Cross from the Liberians and Nigerians who have been rightfully ejecting them from their countries." And now the fourth reason, I quote Nana Kwame. "Last but not least, the appearance of this Ebola pandemic, should Americans not catch on, will be used to scare countless millions into taking the Ebola vaccine, which in reality is the pandemic. Ask yourself if Ebola was really spread from person to person instead of controlled spread through vaccination. Then why would the CDC, that is the US Center for Disease Control, and the US government still allow flights in and out of these countries with absolutely no regulation at all? We have got to start thinking and sharing information globally, because they do not give the true perspective of the people who are living here in West Africa." This from the Facebook entry of Nana Kwame. By the way, in the USA his Facebook page was banned already 2 days after this appeared. A second counter-voice testimony is the Daily Observer, the biggest Liberian newspaper. Amongst other things, the Daily Observer reported already on January the 8th, 2014, that a man had been arrested while trying to pour formaldehyde into a community well. He admitted that he had been paid to do this and that he was not the only one. Liberian public radio stations reported that at least 10 people in one community had died after drinking water from a well. The man also claimed that several water supply companies were involved with this, especially those companies who bottled mineral water for sale. He said the poison produced first symptoms similar to those of Ebola and then killed people. The Daily Observer also claimed to be informed about people dressed as healthcare professionals bringing Ebola vaccine into communities. After the injection, symptoms similar to Ebola would become apparent. A short time later, the patients would fall into a coma and die. After 10 children died immediately following immunization in one village, the next time the vaccine peddlers showed up, they were chased out of town. So these are two counter voices to the mainstream media out of the areas directly affected by Ebola in West Africa. Consider this and form your own opinion. We close today's program with a well-known quote from Mahatma Gandhi, also found as the title on Nana Kwame's Facebook page. First they ignore you, then they ridicule you, then they fight you, and then...
Yes, Bill Gates and his foundation, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or as I like to call it, the Bill and Melinda Gates of Hell Foundation. Let's be clear on this. Anything this individual is involved in, you can be sure there's a sinister purpose behind it. You can be sure it is only to benefit himself and his family. Let me tell you something about Bill Gates. He is in, as George Carlin said, the big club, and we ain't in it. Okay, you can bet that Mr. Gates has earned his seat at the table and is rubbing elbows with some of the most evil elitists on the planet. His sole purpose is to benefit off of our destruction. It's really that simple. Do you really think there are good intentions behind vaccines and GMOs when Mr. Gates is fully backing and funding these operations? And now he is at the forefront in private funding for the Ebola vaccine program. Why do you think that is? And speaking of GMOs and Monsanto, guess who is also directly involved with this Ebola vaccine campaign? That's right, the one and only, the infamous Monsanto. Considered by most to be the most evil, corrupt, destructive company on the planet, is involved with development of an Ebola vaccine. That's right. Monsanto has partnered with the Department of Defense, the DoD, to use a third-party proxy and partner of Monsanto, a little-known company called Techmira Pharmaceuticals Corporation. Is it really that surprising? Who better to aid in the creation of a Frankenstein vaccine than Monsanto? The seed money Monsanto will contribute begins at $1.5 million. The value of the deal has the potential to grow to an estimated $86 million. Techmira is a leading developer of RNA interference therapeutics, or RNAi for short. TKM-Ebola is their anti-Ebola virus RNAi therapeutic, and is being developed under a $140 million contract with the DoD. Techmira website, Pipeline, TKM Ebola. In March 2014, we were granted a fast-track designation from the US FDA for the development of TKM Ebola, our anti-Ebola viral RNAi therapeutic. The FDA's fast track is a process designed to facilitate the development and expedite the review of drugs in order to get important new therapies to the patient earlier. It is worthy of note that once a public health emergency is declared by WHO, World Health Organization, untested experimental vaccines can be given to populations. Couple that with the fierce psychological operations through the corporate mass media, and you have a public literally at the palm of your hands. They would even accept a minimally tested Monsanto-sponsored vaccine.
Have a first line of defense against mysterious disease coming out of Africa. But like many Liberians, Dr. Sahr was skeptical about the presence of Ebola.
The truth is that we haven't had any except for one case, of course one case constitutes an outbreak, in the Ivory Coast, somewhere in the 70s, I think, and that is all. So since then in Liberia, no, not anywhere else except now.
Culturally, humans have evolved with non-human primates all throughout Africa.
The bushmeat shop is in the back. Oh shit, the smell is super putrid. So the Liberian government bans bushmeat, totally, right? But you can still buy bushmeat.
You can still buy bushmeat because they are telling the Liberians not to eat it. And they're telling the marketers not to sell it, but people are still selling it. Because they believe the government is pulling their legs.
All right, so why is the government of Liberia saying there's Ebola if there isn't Ebola?
Apparently, it's a scam to get some money from the international communities, from the donors. It's mainly so because the government is broke. Everybody knows that. The government was able to say that there was $16 billion investment here. They have nothing to show for it. So a lot of people don't believe that Ebola is...
Delegation has come here to kill us, to bring out the virus, to lie about what happened in other places of the forest region, and we have to kill them.
They're attacked by the very people they are trying to help. Today, Guinea is mourning a new kind of Ebola victim. A group of doctors, journalists and officials were killed, it is presumed, by villagers who wrongly thought they were responsible for spreading the disease.
I said to see.
As I speak now, 7 bodies of those 9 missing volunteers have been found. The government strongly condemns the murders of these Guinean citizens.
The authorities here in Conakry have launched an investigation after some of the bodies were found dumped in a pit latrine, the corpses showing injuries from clubs and machetes.
What happened here? The healthcare team was in a remote village in Guinea trying to educate residents on the dangers of Ebola. Witnesses say they were greeted by the chief with open arms, but then some villagers began accusing the aid workers of lying about the Ebola virus, even accusing them of trying to bring the virus to the village to eliminate them. Witnesses say the aid workers were attacked by young people with rocks and machetes. Authorities got word of violence and tried to mount a rescue, but the villagers destroyed the bridges leading into the area. 8 people were killed, including the program director, doctors, and 3 journalists covering the outreach effort. 2 members of the aid team are still missing, but some did manage to escape, and their accounts have led to several arrests, even accusing them of trying to bring the virus to the village to eliminate them.
In nearby Kenema, the 3rd largest town in Sierra Leone, rumors about the virus have brought people onto the streets. A story is going round that Ebola is a hoax, a trick devised by doctors to steal people's blood. The rioters are trying to break down the hospital gates and rescue the patients inside.
Now say this Ebola, now lie, not to Ebola. Now blood people they want. That's what it say.
The police use tear gas and fire live bullets to disperse the rioters.